Welcome to Canvas of the Heart, presented by Free Arts for Abused Children of Arizona. The mission of Free Arts is to transform children's trauma to resilience through the arts. This show is a collection of conversations that spotlight the ways Free Arts creates hope for children and teens who've experienced abuse, neglect, or homelessness. We hope you find this show to be informative, inspiring, and fun. Welcome back to Canvas of the Heart, Jenna.
Thank you, Matt. Glad to be here again.
Yes, as always. Here we're talking about particular tips and tricks for families, in particular around the holidays.
Yeah.
So frame that for us. Why is this what is promised to be the happiest time of the year often more challenging for people?
Yes, I think sometimes that's something that's so overlooked when you have families that consist of children who are not exactly with their family of origin, their birth family. And it can be very, very difficult because, like you mentioned, this is supposed to be the time that we are filled with joy and laughter and seeing one another. But a lot of times it's a significant and silent reminder of the fact that children, teens, young adults even, are not with their biological families or the families that they have come to know as their primary caregivers. And it can be a very significant challenge for a multitude of reasons. Sometimes it's due to guilt of saying that, I'm as a child and I feel happy to be in a environment with my current caregivers, but then I feel guilty that I'm having this joy without my mom and my dad or whomever was the caregiver. Or sometimes it's a variation of that, whereas I really, really miss being with my family, especially if it's during that initial year of being in separation. We know these feelings can come regardless of how much time has passed from the incident, but we know especially for kids during that first year, that year of first is what we typically call it, tends to sometimes be the roughest.
Yeah, it's normal time of year where we're thinking about spending time with loved ones, right? That sense of belonging, which can cue both recognition, loss, and then the uncertainty that the child might be experiencing based on where they're living and where they might be living within weeks, months, or the next year.
Yes, definitely. That sense of belonging is very crucial, Matt. I'm glad you mentioned it because that's what it's all about. It's all about feeling connected. And if you can feel connected to a family that you've been living with 5, 6, 7 months out of the year, there's something about that really critical time during the holidays that can really just cause a shift.
Right. So we're looking at the reasons for that, right? This affects us differently because we serve a couple of groups. Some are in some of the children are in congregate care, meaning they're living in a group home, right? And some are in what is either a foster or a kinship placement. So in kinship, it's usually a family member.
Yes.
So it's extended family. But how might those different dynamics be at play in the holidays for both of those groups?
Yes, because when you have kids that are, we're saying children, but we recognize this as teens as well, and other participants in our programs or just in general that can be falling under the term of kids. But when they're in congregate care, you can typically find that it's sometimes that less connection, that where I know that I'm separated from my family. I get that I'm separated from my family. And maybe it's because I haven't been connected with my family in a very, very long time. But what we notice with those that are in congregate care versus those that are in a family placement is that level of loneliness sometimes can be exacerbated when you're with an entire group of strangers, and it's sometimes even being seen as I'm just a person here in a room with a bunch of other people. And so that's why I know that the system here, especially in Arizona, really works to try to put some young people within a kinship family because they understand that connection. That connection is lost that greater loss when you're in congregate care versus at least being able to have someone be in a home, being out of the system, because you're reminded that you're completely in the system. We've had some participants and some children even say that, when people come to visit, some as appreciative as they are, sometimes it almost feels like charity. And they don't like being felt that way. They don't like that feeling, even though they're appreciative that someone is actually caring about the fact that they're not home for the holidays. So it's that dynamic of being really isolated when you're in congregate care. And the isolation can definitely happen in a kinship or a foster home placement as well. But sometimes you don't tend to see it as easily as you would see with someone that's in congregate care.
Yeah, it makes sense that the lack of familiarity,
Mm-hmm.
being physically away from people that know you well,
Mm-hmm.
those can all be things that really challenge those core feelings of attachment and
Mm-hmm.
connection. I'm wondering how this impacts those that are giving care, that are
Mm-hmm.
uh, either staff in a congregate care setting or the foster care family,
Mm-hmm.
kinship family, because you were just saying something important here about how they're motivated by wanting to do good and to help, and then they encounter, difficulty,
Mm-hmm.
mixed feelings, even as
Yes.
kindness is being extended. So, um, what would you say is something for us to consider with caregivers between their expectations and what reality actually is?
Yes, it's one of those situations where you really have to keep in mind that what you're being presented with behaviorally or even verbally is just an unmet need. It's pain, and it's not to be taken as a lack of appreciation. I, there's sometimes that expectation that whenever someone has been in a traumatic situation or grown up in a household where they've experienced some adverse experiences, that once they're removed from that setting, they're happy, they're fine, they can integrate well and really connect well with others. And we know that's not true. And so when you're doing your best and you're putting your best foot forward because you want to be able to um, celebrate the season, celebrate the holiday, that you kind of go even further out of your way. And so you have the expectation that they're going to be so happy and they're going to be joyous and they're going to really enjoy everything that is being done. And that's not always the case. So sometimes you're met with children wanting to give back or rejecting gifts, children not wanting to participate in the programs. If you're in congregate care, and the programs that you want to set up, they're not wanting to participate in the festivities, and they're engaging in self-isolation, or they're have demonstrating some type of behavioral challenges, displays of anger or frustration, especially very easily. And that's not what you expected
Right.
in the slightest. So the reality is that the children are going through so many different feelings, so many different emotions, and trying to grapple with what it is that they wanted for themselves, because really what it comes down to is loss. It's the loss of being with family, it's the loss of memories, the loss of the ability to make memories with their families that they want to be making memories with. And it's the loss of the life that they might have been envisioning for themselves. And it's feeling it's those feelings of despair, feeling of, I'm going to school and I'm seeing other people talk about this, seeing other people talk about their families, who's coming to town, who's doing this, who's going out of town for the holiday, and recognizing that that if I'm in that position, I don't have that ability to do those things. So we're looking at it on a surface level sometimes as caregivers, and we're looking at what we're able to provide for the young people that we have, the children that we have in our care. We're not recognizing all of the whirlwind of emotions that are going on within them that we just may not have thought of, because regardless of who that initial caregiver, that whether it was the mother, the father, or whomever, regardless of what the relationship might have been like with that person, what we do know is that we still can miss them, that we don't automatically just stop wanting to be with them or stop wanting a presence simply because of an adverse experience or certain challenges that took place. So it's wanting to recognize that it may not look how we want it to look, the holiday may not look how we want it to look, and that their response may not be what we want it to be.
Yeah, a sobering reality is that when we're that young, um, we're wired to attach,
Yeah.
right? And then we experience things we shouldn't be, neglect or abuse. And in a young person, that wiring still wants us
It's
to
still there.
attach. And sometimes the longer a child or a teen is in that environment, the more they become primed in their personality and their coping strategies to appease the person or persons in their lives that are causing the neglect and abuse.
Yes.
And that can be a very confusing place that I feel the need to attach to this thing that is at times harmful to this people that are harmful for me.
Yes.
And so it is both possible for a child to leave and feel safe and glad, but also have deep, good old-fashioned homesickness. I don't know if there's a better way of describing it, around what they've been wired to attach to, right? When it goes well, attachment is so important and singularly focused on safety and preservation that even when that safety is not there, the attachment drive is still active. And as you think about that, how does that show up in behavior, right? So I think we can start to make a list of the emotions, but most children, depending on their age, can't tell you how they're feeling yet. Actually, most adults can't.
Most can't do it either. So.
Right. So we have to be honest about that. We're not even sure what we're feeling. Often there's a combination. You can have two mixed emotions, multiple, in positive and negative. And what are the behaviors that show up that might tell someone, maybe I should find out what's happening here, what that behavior is motivated by. So what would you see in somebody who's going through that?
Yeah, it can be so many different things. So the key thing is, first and foremost, is when you know someone in your care and you know their normal patterns of behavior, you can start to see what is abnormal in them. And so some of those things can be running away, not wanting to be around anyone with the self-isolation. The absconding from home is something that has happened. Depending upon if they're older, sometimes they just don't want to be in the space, that escapism feeling and mentality. Depending upon the development level, if you're seeing a regression in certain developmental milestones, if you're seeing that a child that was potty trained is now wetting the bed, or they're engaging in certain behavioral developmental milestones that they have achieved, but it looks like they're regressing. You can have someone with outbursts of anger, throwing items, being more aggressive in their behavior, hitting, kicking, yelling, I don't want to be here, changes in appetite, changes in sleep patterns, just because they're in so much mental distress and just don't know how to verbally communicate it. So it really just depends on the developmental stage and what is something that is a new development in what you're seeing.
Okay. How do we support when we see this? We see the emotions, and maybe think about this as children of a certain age and teens of another age, right? How do we come around and support those that are experiencing this?
First things first is to allow space for the grief. It's very, very common for anyone and in any type of situation where it's loss or it's grief to want to fill that space with joy and happiness and distractions. And when we do that, all we're doing is teaching avoidance. We're teaching that, okay, what you're saying, what you're feeling really doesn't matter in this moment, that we need to be emphasizing something else. So that it actually ends up having a counter effect than what we really want. So we have to be able to give space to support that grief. And sometimes that means talking about it and saying, hi, how are you feeling? I know you're missing so-and-so. Talk to me about it. And if they're able to do so, then you let them. And then if they're not able to do it, then we know there are other ways. But then art is always an option. Sometimes if they can't verbalize it, it's something that it can come out on a canvas. It can come out on a piece of paper. Another thing that I like to suggest that we do is, especially if you have someone who is in some form of foster home placement or a kinship placement or even adoptive placement, we love to have people over for the holidays. We love to talk to people. We love to congregate together. But if you're bringing a bunch of people into the space where a child is now felt safe in your own home and they don't know who the people are, that can now present a lot of anxiety and an unsafe space for that person. So one of the things that we suggest is if you know people are coming to town to celebrate with you, introduce them to the children in your care. There are some times where it's unavoidable. Maybe, you haven't seen this person in like 5 years, and so they've never met. But you don't want to have an element of surprise. You want to have anyone in your care know what to expect. So sometimes that's like, okay, well, Auntie so and so or my sister is coming over. This is who this person is to me. Maybe even showing them a picture so that they know who are all these new strange people that are now coming around or that I'm supposed to be introduced to. We can't expect that their nervous system is going to be able to properly regulate and handle being in such strange spaces with strange people. So that's something very small that is easily and often overlooked that we can do to help support children during the holidays. Something else we can do is incorporating or creating new family traditions, especially if it's an adoptive family or if it's expected to be some type of long-term care. Maybe we can incorporate them in the planning of what we're doing. So something like that could be with, what would you like to do this holiday? Would you like to make snowflakes and put them up on the wall? Or would you, if it's an older kid, hey, do you want to make the Christmas playlist this year? What do you want to do? How do you want to be involved? And that's what's going to aid in that sense of belonging and saying that I'm not just here and you're giving me orders, telling me I have to wear this, I have to wear that, I have to show up here, but you're actually incorporating me into the development of what's going to be our holiday celebrations. That's especially important when you are working or you're living with children or teens of a different cultural background. That I think is also something that is very overlooked. Is being able to incorporate other traditions, cultural traditions. What does that mean for them? Depending upon if they're coming from another country, what does that mean? How did they normally celebrate? How can you bring that into the fold? We have some unaccompanied minors that are being sponsored. And so when you're being sponsored by someone in the community, especially if they're not of your cultural background, how do you make them feel comfortable? How do you merge the two together? And even if there's not a specific cultural difference between you and someone that's in your care, what is it that could have been a tradition for them? What is something that they were able to do before? Were they always able to maybe open up a gift before the holidays, before actual Christmas Day, if that's what you celebrate? Is that something that you can continue? And then you can create new ones. You can create something and establish something because the truth is that a lot of children and teens who've been in care, they've never had that ability. They never had that opportunity. So you're giving them something new, something to be looking forward to. And another thing that I like to also advise people to do when you want to support kids during the holiday is sometimes when you have those other families, that extended family or friends that are coming, they may accidentally forget to bring a gift for your newest person in your home. And how bad would that child feel? So sometimes it's really important to have some gifts on standby. We've had situations, or we've been told of situations where teens reported that, everybody in the house got a gift but them because someone who, another family member from out of town came and they forgot about it. They forgot that, hey, there was a foster child in the home too. So sometimes having those gifts on standby. But I think one of the most important things is recognizing that if you want a child, a teen, young adult to feel like they are included in your home, literally treat them like you would your other kids, anyone else in the
It
family.
makes sense. Yeah. I mean, that's why we're being part of another family, even temporarily, is to have that same sense of security and resource, right? So those are great things for us to think about with the holidays. But as soon as those kind of end and the year turns over into a new year, um, you wanted to talk a little bit about what a family could go through in goal setting for a new year.
We do this all the time. Every year you hear, oh, what are you going to do? Your New Year's resolution? What is going to happen? How do you want to better yourself? But I would challenge anyone out there, whether you are in a biological family or not, or you have some other type of unique makeup, we do not live in isolation. So why are we setting goals for only ourselves? Individual goals are excellent. Don't get me wrong, but we're in the business of wanting to foster connections with people. And one of the ways to do that is to set goals for your family to work on together. Instead of looking at certain challenges or certain behaviors as your problem or my problem, why can't we tackle them together? And that's why family goal setting and making group and family resolutions is so important, because it teaches you how to work together towards a common goal. It helps with that connection. It helps with being able to collaborate together. And it really allows people to recognize working as a team versus working individually. We live in a very individual society when we really could do more to be more collectivists.
Yeah, we can learn definitely from that. So what would you see are other benefits of this? How does it help everyone in the family to look at these?
Yeah, so it helps everyone to recognize that I'm not the problem, that the problem might exist, but it doesn't exist within just me. So that's one of the benefits of when you do see certain things that maybe you want to work on together, because it's not as optimal as it could be. Another stated benefit of being able to do this together is recognizing what abilities you have within yourself and as a family, and being able to establish your own sense of who you are as a unit. Because I think if you ask somebody, hey, tell me about yourself, you can start talking about some of your unique traits and your unique qualities. So tell me about your family. And you need to be able to have that same kind of conversation and be able to call on all of those different traits of how you're making memories and you're making those positive connections, because that's what it's all about. We know there are adverse childhood experiences, but then you also have those positive childhood experiences. And if you want to be able to counter and have a buffer for those and help build resilience, if that's what your goal is, you have to do it together. You didn't create those challenges in a silo, so why are you working on them in a silo?
Makes sense. So how does a family get started in doing that?
You got to identify what it is that you want first and foremost. What is the problem? And then you make your goals, and then you make them smart. And so the SMART goals framework is one of the things that we typically use. Anyone who does anything with psychology, any type of coaching, life coaching, anything, they'll tell you you need SMART goals. Make it specific. If you have a vague goal, you're not going to know how to get there. If you want to be able to increase the chances that you're going to be successful, specifically lay out what it is that you want. And then you have to make it measurable, because how are you going to know when you're done? How are you going to know when you've accomplished it? How do you do that? You make it something measurable, something that you can see, okay, this I accomplished. It's not something that you have to guess and say, all right, I think we did it, guys. I think we made it. No, make it measurable, and then make it achievable, because we don't want far-fetched goals that are like, say, yes, we're going to the moon tomorrow. That's our goal. Okay, well, do you have the means to get there? Do you have the skills to get there? Do you have the clearance to get there? How is that going to happen? You have to have achievable and attainable goals, and then they have to be relevant. We don't want goals that do not help us. We don't want to create steps for a goal that we don't need or that we can't achieve. If it's not relevant to helping your family function at its best, what are you doing it for? If it's not a goal to help you function at your best, what is the purpose of you putting this time and energy? And then the last is time-based. What is the time frame that you're working with? Is this a short-term goal or a long-term goal? And you determine that, but determine it in a way that is realistic, but that also makes it a challenge because you're dedicated to it. I mean, if it's a short-term goal, that's something that can typically be accomplished within a couple hours to a couple months. That's anywhere in the short-term goal range. Do you really want to put a 3-year span on it? You're gonna forget about it at that point in time, and it's not going to be helpful to you. It's not going to be effective. But if it's something that requires a little more time, maybe you need to learn some skills first before you can actually execute your plan. Do you want to put a 1-month time frame on it? Is that going to help you? Is that going to stress you out? So if you can follow that SMART framework, being specific, being measurable, being achievable, relevant, and having a specified time base on it, you will set yourself up and set your family up for success with achieving your goal.
Wonderful. Thank you for coming on today and talking about navigating the holidays and also family goals. But before we finish for today,
Oh, this sounds fun.
yeah, you haven't had a chance to meet the wheel yet.
There's a wheel?
Of the Whirl of Fun.
There's a Whirl of Fun!
So hopefully we can see this okay.
Yay!
But the Whirl of Fun has some of our core values and also elements of our outcomes pyramid. So these are things we hope we are embodying at Free Arts. And so here's how it works. Give it a spin.
Okay.
You have to answer about a time recently
Mm-hmm.
that you've had to utilize one of these.
Innovation.
So when have you been innovative?
Ooh. Does it have to be specific to Free Arts?
It could be anything in your life that you're
Anything?
willing to share.
I'm going to stick to Free Arts. So being innovative, I think I would have to say, and this is almost this is probably an extension of another conversation that we've had, is having the ability to create new resources for people. I think when we talk about innovation, a lot of it is creating something concrete that you can touch, but the innovation of being able to create new ways to share information with different populations and different groups. And that has been something that I know I've helped to work on, especially in these past several months and specifically, is being able to create new ways to talk about what we do and to come up with new ways to demonstrate what we do, like in a program, and figuring out the best way to deliver that information and creating that new kind of window of school to be able to bring that information out to people. So I would say that would be what's happened with innovation with me lately.
Awesome. Love that answer. I think it might be the first time I've seen somebody hit innovation.
Score.
So some other people feel like, is this wheel rigged because it keeps landing on, what was the one? Connection?
Connection.
So you can only answer that one so many times. But thanks for answering the Whirl of Fun and sharing a bit about yourself.
Yes.
And, taking a time to tell us more about the navigation of the holidays, family goals, how we can do to support families and children, teens at a really crucial time that society looks as positive and happy, and which we might have other feelings about. So thank you again for sharing all of that. And we'll see you all next time on Canvas of the Heart. Thank you for listening to this episode of Canvas of the Heart. We'd love to hear your questions and feedback by email at hello@freeartsaz.org. You can find more information about Free Arts by visiting our website at freeartsaz.org. We'd like to thank the many individual and corporate donors and the hundreds of volunteers that make Free Arts programs possible. Take care, and we will talk to you soon.